Forster was born in 1879, but the father died within a year of Forster's birth. And that affected his life to a great extent because it drove him and his mother in on themselves. And despite the fact that they were very comfortably off and had plenty of money and resources, they always felt slightly outside their true class, as it were. So when he came up to Cambridge, to King's College, it was a tremendous release to him. He had not imagined that he could actually have intellectual conversations with people, that he could make huge friendships that would sustain him for the rest of his life. So King's and Cambridge was an enormous release to Forster and really turned him into somebody who thought of himself as being capable of writing books and had the confidence for the first time to think of himself as a writer. And Forster, after writing Howard's End and starting another novel called Arctic Summer, had come to feel that that novel wasn't working very well, and he kind of ran out of steam on that one. And he had a chance to go out to India with two Cambridge and King's friends of his, and he leapt at the chance to kind of get himself out of what he felt was rather a rut in England, and took off to India. And he wrote letters home to his mum and to other friends, and on the basis of those letters, he began to think that he had the potential to write a good book out of his encounter with India. And I think he felt that India had, in some sense, delivered him from a rather narrow and restricted view of the world, and had opened up the possibility for a completely new novel with a new subject. When Forster went out to India the first time in 1912 to 13, he toured around visiting his friend Said Ross Massoud and other friends he'd made at King's and Cambridge, in fact, a whole circle of them who were working out in India. So he had exposure in India to both sides, in a sense, because he was staying with Indians, in the case of Massoud and one or two others of Massoud's contacts, but he was also staying with what he called the Anglo-Indians, that's to say Englishmen who'd gone out to India and were working there. And so he saw the club life that was the centre of the social existence of that group of people, but he also saw something of the Indian side of living in India. And he was very conscious of the hostility and difficulty that both of those groups had in relating to each other. And in a way, the hinge of the novel is exactly that. The Passage to India is about the difficulty of making relationships across that divide, and of one set of people understanding the other set of people, or even tolerating them.
I've had 25 years' experience of this country, and I've never known anything but disaster result when English and Indians attempt to be intimate.
Forster himself, all throughout the rest of his life, was forever telling people that it didn't really matter what happened in the Morava caves. What mattered, as it were, was the very muddle about what happened in the Morava caves. So I think that was his central insight, that it didn't matter whether there'd been a sexual assault on Adela in the caves. What mattered was that there was a mystery at the centre of the book, which nobody could explain, and in a way the rest of the book is an exploration of misunderstandings about what might have gone on in the caves, and a failure on the part of most of the characters involved to really register that the central mystery of the Morava caves was, as it were, the absence of meaning. And the true horror of the Morava caves is that it's meaningless. The meaningless echo that Mrs. Moore hears in the cave is, I think, a very important symbol in the book.
Mrs. Moore! Please!
It's a very difficult question as to why Forster didn't write another full-length novel after A Passage to India. I think part of the reason is that he felt he didn't have as good a subject ever again as he had in India and A Passage to India, and that's why perhaps he was never able to explain it, despite the fact that hundreds, if not thousands, of people were always asking him the question, why no more novels, Mr. Forster? he was never really able, I think, satisfactorily to explain to others, and perhaps even to himself, why that was the case. Contrary to what many people think of, they think of Forster as a sort of old maidish figure, rather left behind by the 20th century. Forster was actually very good as a broadcaster himself, and in fact much of his later work in the 30s and 40s and most of his important work was done as a broadcaster. So he was actually very good at using what then was the cutting edge technology in communication. And so I suspect he might not have been quite as hostile to filmmaking and films as one might think. It's a fun question, really, to think about what Forster might have made of it. I think he would have been ambivalent about A Passage to India. I think he would have appreciated many things about it, but he might have felt uncomfortable that the novel, as he saw it, was not fully represented in the film. I think he might have also appreciated that filmmakers cannot just be truthful to the novel. It might not make any sort of a decent film at all, but they have to explore the novel in different ways. I think he would have appreciated that, but he might also have felt, I think, slightly unhappy, particularly with the way the ending of the film is different from the ending of the book. Good though that film is.